Hello again, and welcome to our final chapter and also your final week in class. I hope that you've enjoyed BA 310 and more importantly feel like you've learned something. In addition, I hope you found these short videos helpful throughout and well worth your time. But let's jump into chapter 10, which is another interesting chapter to kind of end up our discussion on ethics and moral issues. And this is really moral issues facing employees, which I think is a great way to end our discussion on business ethics. So one of the first things that is highlighted in the chapter is about loyalty to the company. And I think our initial response is, yes, everyone should have loyalty to the company. And likewise, the company should have some amount of loyalty to their employees. And I think the trouble with this is that in many cases in today's world, I don't know that people do have loyalty to the company. On the flip side of that, I don't know how much loyalty companies have to employees. At the very first sign of a downturn, we're going to lay off tens of thousands of employees. So I do think it works both ways. I think in a perfect world, both individuals, both the employee and the company would have loyalty to each other. But certainly employees owe a certain amount of loyalty to the company. And those are kind of the overarching topic of this chapter, is really about loyalty to the company in different aspects. So the first one that we're going to highlight is this idea of conflicts of interest. And a conflict of interest really arises when your private interests interfere with the company's interests or your job duties. And in many cases, these could be small, but in other cases, they can be quite large. I know the textbook highlights Fastow in Enron. I know for me, I had a similar issue to that when I worked at MCI with a gentleman called Walter Pavlo, who ended up serving 4 years in prison. But he ended up starting factoring companies and then selling. He was selling his receivables to his own company. And of course, he was skimming off the top too. And while they never really uncovered how much money he took, many people think it was in the amount of millions. So those are two, I guess, high-level conflicts of interest, but they can be much smaller too. And I think the lesson here is that if you even think you have a conflict of interest, even if it might just be a perceived conflict of interest, the best thing to do in all cases is to communicate that potential conflict of interest with your supervisors, your bosses, your management. And that really takes the ethic or moral issues kind of off the table. The next thing highlighted in the chapter is what the authors call an abuse of your official position. And these can be small things like stealing from the company, from the supply cabinet, to lying on travel vouchers. And I know I've had to fire a number of employees when it was found out that they lied on their travel voucher and were turning in and making up invoices and things like that to get paid for it. And I've also had to get rid of an employee for using the company's FedEx account to mail all sorts of things. And really, I mean, in both of those situations, you're talking about stealing from the company. But these abuse of official positions can grow much greater than some petty theft of the company. And again, not to excuse that, because all of those issues are both immoral and unethical. But some of the things that the textbook highlights is insider trading, which is using information that is not made public to make decisions in your personal life. Usually it involves either buying or selling of stock. So it might be selling a stock before bad news is released to the public, or purchasing stock before good news is released to the public. Both of those are considered an abuse and definitely unethical to use information that is not available to the public. One that is probably much less of a gray area than insider trading is accepting bribes or kickbacks from vendors. And this can be substantial gifts or entertainment. I know we've heard of Congress people that are flown places and given free tickets to the Super Bowl, things like that. I mean, really, all of these are some kind of bribe and kickback, and highly in the gray area and most likely unethical. The last thing that this text, that the text really talks about in chapter 10 is this idea of whistleblowing. And I know we talked about this way back in chapter 1, this idea of whistleblowing. And I guess one of the questions I have is, after reading the textbook, do you think it's right, or do you agree with people blowing the whistle or whistleblowing? And before you pause and kind of think about it, really whistleblowing is informing the public of illegal or immoral actions or behaviors by, the textbook says the company, but the company doesn't make any decisions, right? It's people within the company. So it's really either immoral or illegal decisions or actions of people inside the company. So go ahead and pause the video and think about whether you agree with this idea of whistleblowing and informing the public of immoral or illegal activities by people within the company. All right, now that you've had a few minutes to kind of think about it, I think the way the textbook relays it, you know, whistleblowing is a good thing and it's a moral thing. And I guess I would argue in many cases it's the wrong thing to do. And going back to the very beginning of this chapter, when we talked about loyalty to the company, and I question a lot of people that blow the whistle and what kind of loyalty do they have to the company. And I say that because most whistleblowers do not go through the entire chain of command before they go outside and inform the public about something somebody's doing. And I think that's a breach of contract or a breach of loyalty to the company by not giving everybody. So if my boss did something that I thought was immoral or illegal, I have the responsibility to go to my boss. And even if my boss does, or their boss, even if they don't agree with me, I don't think that is the time to go out to the public and blow the whistle to the public, because that individual's got a boss. And until really I get to the CEO of the company or corporation, I think it's wrong, because you haven't given everybody, management within the company, the opportunity to take care of it without it going public. So I do believe in most cases whistleblowing is wrong, unless the individual has gone through all levels of management and they were turned down. And then I think, okay, then in that instance, I really think it's right. So this was a really brief discussion of chapter 10. Again, I hope you enjoyed BA 310, Ethics in the Workplace. Again, more importantly, I hope you learned something, and I hope you found these videos helpful.